Okay, I think we're going to begin just because we have some wonderful content to cover today. We want to make sure that we have ample time. So I will introduce our panelists for today. We have Mark Stackpole, GTS founder and CEO. He'll be serving as our moderator for our discussion this afternoon. Dirk Ahrens from Virtual Systems. He is president. And then from the Zoom team, we have Jim McGarry, channel sales leader for the Central region, and John Nelms, channel sales engineer. So thank you all for joining us this afternoon. And Mark will be kicking off the conversation. So it's all yours, Mark.
Thanks, Mary, and welcome everybody. We really appreciate you joining us this afternoon and spending a couple minutes with a few organizations that I think are not only excellent organizations, but great people and great advisors. So if nothing else, we figured we'd help some organizations, as well as some of our sales partners, gain a little bit of knowledge and learn a little bit about our respective businesses, and then also come together for a collective conversation on kind of this new normal, right? And IT strategies for returning to the office. It's the new normal is kind of, I've seen a few of these over the last 2 decades in this industry, right? It was kind of to the cloud, or what does VoIP mean to you? And gosh, you could ask 10 different people in a room and get 7 different answers. And I kind of feel we're getting to that same spot with the new normal. Speaking for our organization that's got 20-something people, we did settle into a new normal. Whereas most of our folks that were at least in state used to come into the office, we're now almost entirely remote or into a flex schedule and saw productivity increase. And we've heard that similar story from a lot of our clients. And just a quick minute on us. GTS we're technology consultants and advisors in the areas of connectivity, collaboration, cloud, and cybersecurity. We're a master agency based out of Michigan. We work with about 350 sales partners nationwide, ranging from MSPs or MSSPs to single shop consultants, turnaround consulting firms, all different types of organizations that utilize us as a brokerage as well as an advisors to get to some of the providers such as Zoom, Virtual Systems, AT&T, Comcast, the list goes on and on. And we're fortunate to have worked and had some tremendous success with both Zoom and Virtual Systems. Zoom, my little fun joke with Zoom is they almost became the Kleenex of the collaboration industry. What more fun could you have had as a virtual company than a pandemic? Not to make light of the situation, but how many people would you hear just say, "Hey, when are we Zooming?" or when are we getting together on Zoom? So instead of the tissue paper, it really just or saying virtual meeting, people just started using the word Zoom because it was so common and really became an industry leader and standard. Virtual Systems, a firm that's also based out of Michigan, they're kind of our Swiss Army knife, and we've had tremendous success providing great information to our clients that perhaps we were looking at for infrastructure or cloud migration strategies. And even if the clients didn't end up onboarding, they always walk away smarter from a meeting with Virtual Systems. So with that being said, I'm excited to kick this off. We're going to learn a little bit about these organizations, and then we're going to spend some time together just talking about some Q&A and some practical information that we hope can arm you and your organization with a little bit more information moving forward. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to John and Jim over at Zoom, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate it. I've got Jim McGarry, our leader of channel for the Central U.S. alongside me. Both Jim and I both love baseball. So Jim, let's run this like we're calling a baseball game. I'll be play-by-play, you be color commentator. We are in Austin, Texas today, where it is a piping hot 95 degrees. And we hope that you are somewhere cool as well, everyone. Appreciate y'all joining us today. And so I think a lot of people are moving towards this flexible work environment, right, Jim? A lot of people are in this modality now where they got an atmosphere of it doesn't really matter where I work. And I would be delighted if some folks here use the chat functionality to tell us how they're working remotely. I know I have purchased an RV and I roam the country, and I'm able to put a fake background up so it looks like I'm sitting at my home. Full disclosure, I am at my home today. But a lot of people are working from their homes. Jim, I presume you're at home today.
I am at home today.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people are kind of in that modality where they've got some flexibility there, and we're finding that people are working remotely and being more productive in doing so. Jim, how long has it been since you've actually worked from an office?
Well, gosh, for all my times being remote, it's been probably years, but since I've been at Zoom, I have not yet been to an office to
Right.
actually function out of there, right? But years, right? And a lot of us have adapted to that over not only what we've gone through in the last year, but just the flexibility that it gives us. I mean, unfortunately, it doesn't get me up to Grand Rapids or to Detroit as much as I would like, or as much as I did in the past. But the ability to still be able to be remote, be productive, to some of the slides that you have here is really what I think has been meaningful.
Well, that's just it. And I think that a lot of people, I'm curious in chat, are you more productive at home? Are you more productive at the office? I think to each his own, right? And I think that's where we're going, right? I talked to some friends yesterday who said they have the flexibility through the end of this year, through 2021, to work either at their house or at the office, whatever is more functional for them. And to answer your question, Matt, I'm using in RV, I use good old fashioned hotspot tethering from my mobile device in the RV. I cannot wait until I'm able to get satellite Starlink service in the RV to get, you're only as good as the network you're riding on. And it's almost become a utility now. Good prolific internet wherever you go. So Envoy has done a survey here about people who have concerns about returning to a physical office. I think this is probably waning a little bit now with the vaccine, wouldn't you say, Jim? I think
yeah.
There's a lot more people who are willing to go back into the office. Next slide, please. And some of those concerns are really just pandemic related still. So not knowing if someone's sick. So if you have that flexibility, if you have a sick kiddo or you have symptoms yourself and you want to stay at home, organizations are encouraging it, which is a lot different. So how do we mesh these environments, right? How do we allow this multimodality workforce? There's a lot more job searches now being done where people are looking for jobs that are remote. A lot more people are a lot more organizations are offering jobs that are exclusively remote. I think that's great. I think that now we are enabling folks with the tools to do so. Next slide. Here's another little statistic from Gartner. Most organizations here, 3 out of 4 organizations are going to have some way of allowing folks to work remotely. And this is an interesting one to me. Almost 100% of people here want to spend at least one physical day in the office. Reasons why, next slide. The reason, oh, look at that. We've got a slide in a slide. That's fantastic. I've never seen that before. But reasons why, if you want to get into the office, I think events are a big part of it. Team camaraderie, those things are huge for people to be able to want to go into a physical office. So commercial real estate still useful, maybe a little bit different landscape. So let's talk about how that looks. If you give us the next slide, there we go. So this is an interesting look. If you look on the left here, and it's a little bit of an eye chart, you may have to enlarge your screen a little bit, but the home environment on the left, the bottom left there, the office environment on the bottom right. So this is the new hybrid workplace. If I work from my house for a few days, if I work from the RV for a few days, if I work from the office for a few days per week, I have flexibility to do all of the same functions regardless of where I'm located. And Jim, I think, as we look at the entire Zoom ecosystem, there's a lot that goes into this, right? I mean, more than just meetings, which everyone knows Zoom for the meetings. But what else, Jim, do you see as kind of the leaders of what Zoom is really pioneering in how we enable a hybrid workforce?
Yeah, and to John's point, I mean, and I noticed that hopefully in jest, Matt English, I saw your note, got really sick of Zoom over the pandemic. I think there's probably lots of folks who felt similar from
Zoom
a video
fatigue,
conferencing
right?
perspective. Zoom fatigue was a real thing, and we all see it. And obviously, us being at Zoom, we spend a lot more time probably than a lot of folks on Zoom just because we use it internally. But there's so much more to the experience that's at home, that's at work. We want the same modality. We want the same functionality between when I'm at home, when I go back to an office, when I work from a remote destination or whatever that's going to look like. So I need that functionality to be seamless and an experience to be simple for me to continue to use the products as I would expect them in an office or remote, and from a mobile device as well. So some of the things that John's hinting to and alluding to are the success that we've had outside of meetings with our collaboration platform, with our UCaaS platform that we affectionately call zoomphone. The ability to drop in and add in the phone functionality into the product suite that everybody's using, that's on 431 million desktops today, the zoomphone client or the Zoom client itself. The ability to add the UCaaS experience into that, to enable collaboration, to enable whiteboarding sessions, to push out webinars like this from wherever you're at in the globe, from wherever you're at in an office or at home. That's the functionality that people are really looking to leverage and use inside of their work environment and make it ultimately flexible for where they're at.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you're at, right? So you probably saw my background behind me. You probably thought it was a blurred background. It's actually a green screen. So green screen becoming very popular. It doesn't really matter where you work. You can do it wherever you go. You can have a virtual background of any type. To put something up, no one's going to know where people are actually located unless you ask the question, where are you at today? So it's a little bit, it's hard to tell. Yeah, I've seen Mark's changing his there. It's so convenient. And when you think about all the distractions of home, this is a huge component of what we do, right? We have these abilities to mask a lot of that and make it look like you're in a professional setting, regardless of where you're located. Now, a lot of people... Oh, go ahead, Jim.
And remember, professional setting, and I'm noticing some of the comments that are coming in. This is one of the pieces that I appreciate the most about the Zoom platform, actually. And I've noticed it most on Zoom rather than any other platform that I've worked on previously, is not only is it the background that people are looking to get the professionalism and the quality out of, but don't forget about the audio. And actually, I do little tutorials for my neighbors all the time who are on Zoom, because one of the most compelling features that we have is the ability for noise cancellation to block out every distraction that's happening inside of the background. For instance, just earlier in the week, we had the cleaning crew that was here, and there's not much I can do when they're here. They don't necessarily adjust to my schedule, and if I'm working and they are vacuuming right outside, I have to continue on with whatever that I'm doing at that moment. And just this week, I was on a presentation, I was giving out some comments, and I even apologized to folks. I'm like, I'm so sorry if you can hear that in the background. The cleaning crew's here, they're vacuuming right outside my office door. And I had comments like, we hear nothing, we just hear you, so just keep going. And I'm like, that's such incredible technology. That's such a powerful feature set to eliminate the background noise. And Zoom has been shown to just continue to get better at doing that as a conversation continues and there's more background noise. So if you don't know how to enable that feature, that is absolutely one that you want to make sure you're taking full advantage of.
I think you just sound exceptional from your Scott Van Pelt headset that you're wearing there. So
well, that's also it.
Looks great.
And I can see Dirk is in the headset crew as well. So I like that.
He's sporting it as well. That's right.
That's right. That's right.
You need your glasses on, Jim, just to complete the ensemble. But
right.
Or you could get a some fancy retro mic as well if you needed to as well. But yeah, the background noise suppression, huge. That's something we take for granted, right? Once you turn that original sound on, if I were to turn mine on right now, my original sound, and I'm scraping my nails across my desk, you're going to get a lot of that background noise. But if I do it with sound off, or the original sound off, you're not getting all of that noise, and it's suppressing a lot of those things that are part of that environment. So yeah, so where did Zoom actually start? And I apologize, the formatting is a little bit slid off the screen here, but Zoom actually started on the right side of the screen. Now, I started my career, and probably a lot like a lot of you, on the left side of the screen, where specifically for me was the bottom left on-premises analog, and kind of moved my way through that trajectory there. Zoom was already there because we started with meetings, right? We started with video meetings, like webinars like what we're in right now. And we have incorporated Zoom Phone into it here in the last couple of years. Zoom Phone is without question the biggest up and comer product that Zoom has, right, Jim? It is. Yep. It is. I mean, I used to use my physical desk phone very often, and now I feel like it's collecting dust. That said, Zoom integrates with 70 plus different handset types. This one's a poly. Regardless of what device you use, I think most people these days are very comfortable using their soft phone. Do you ever touch your phone, Jim?
I do not. Actually, don't even have one. I don't even have one.
You use your headset for
everything. For everything.
It's to each his own. I'm a little old school. I like to have a physical phone. I will. Full disclosure, I use this device a heck of a lot. If I'm up and about around the house, I can use all of the same features and functionality from my Zoom desktop client on this guy right here. And so it's very easy for me to work remotely with my phone in my pocket. I think that a lot of people are shifting that direction as well, where they want that mobility. Next slide, we'll talk a little bit about Zoom Phone and how we can kind of tote that portability of Zoom Phone with us wherever we go. The biggest thing here is everyone knows that we did meetings for a very long time, right? I think I got an email this morning. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary here at Zoom. And we've been doing meetings for that entire time. Zoom Phone is the audio portion of the meeting. So we've been doing the audio portion of our meetings for just as long. And so we're able to move a lot of those things that we did on the audio and video side to just an audio only type of solution, and incorporate phones into it as well, dialability, administration, and all of the rich functionality of a PBX that you would have as well. Right, Jim?
You got it. And what's most impressive about Zoom Phone, obviously, when you look at, and GTS, you all know the UCaaS market incredibly well, and your partners know it incredibly well. But I think the most compelling statement about Zoom Phone is it's a product that's only been around for just over 2 years now. And in those first 7 quarters of the product's infancy, since the product's infancy, we have more than 1 million active users on Zoom Phone today. That has nothing to do with the video portion that we all know and we have seen. That's the actual Zoom Phone portion. That's the UCaaS, that's the collaboration tool that we use. So in 7 quarters, we grew over 1 million UCaaS seats. The closest to do that was one of our competitors, the next closest to us. They did it in 17 quarters. And we just announced in the last 4 months, we did close to 500,000 seats of UCaaS again. So your customers, the people that you're working with every single day are voting, and they're continuing to vote for growing what their Zoom platform experience continues to look like.
Yeah, and I saw a metric the other day where in June here, about 2 weeks ago, we've surpassed the 1.5 million.
The 1.5 million.
So yeah, it's
growing. And John, to that point, that only happens that, obviously the product, to what Mark had said earlier, that, we have become a verb throughout all of this. We do not want to be known as a pandemic brand. Yeah, we've become a verb. We've become the Kleenex of the collaboration industry, and we don't want to be known as a pandemic brand because we're not. And the UCaaS product shows that, right? The UCaaS product shows that by its functionality, by its feature set, by its integration abilities. And I know you have some of those slides today. But that's what I want to drive home to folks, is that the only way that you can get UCaaS customers to use your product, to adore your product, to continue to grow it, is by having, one, the most reliable platform out there today, feature rich, and a mobile first experience. And those are all things that those are all boxes that Zoom checks with our Zoom Phone experience.
Yeah, and it's a seamless application beyond one product, right? It's not just meetings, and you see all of those applications or all those products, so to speak, under that one application umbrella here. So chat is included in our client. We have an immersive phone experience that you can use within the client as well, that gives you full functionality. The webinar that you're on right now, you may have joined from your client. We have an entire suite of Zoom Rooms type devices that we can integrate with. And then the Zoom app marketplace is growing daily and huge, as really the next frontier for what we will be doing at Zoom, and integrating with those developers who choose to write software with us. I will say this: the pace of play here at Zoom. I think at month number 4 here at Zoom, and I am floored by the pace of innovation that is taking place here at Zoom. If you're running the client, which I hope everybody here on this call is running the Zoom client between one of their desktop, their laptop, their mobile device, make sure you're upgrading it on a regular basis. Make sure you've got the latest version. If you don't know if you do, if you go up into your face icon, if you have a picture loaded of yourself, or up at the top right, there's an icon of yourself in your main client. You can go in and check for updates. We just released an update on Monday. It's 5.70 is the latest version. So make sure you're running that, because so many new features are going into the product on a monthly basis. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Dirk. I appreciate y'all listening to what Zoom has to offer today, and hopefully those DoorDash gift cards are getting in your hands as well right now.
Yeah, thanks, John. I think they are. So I'm seeing some stuff in the chat that a few people haven't gotten them yet, but be patient. Thank you for being patient so far. We got a team of folks who are sending stuff out to everybody. So sorry if it's a little bit later, but it's getting there. So I guess I have to start by telling you a little bit about virtual systems, because we're not a verb yet. Nobody's virtual systemsing anything like they are Zoom, but we're a cloud verified VMware partner. So we deliver really cool cloud solutions to our customers all over North America. Hopefully, can everybody see my screen? Did I start screen sharing? Not on the, okay, yeah, good. Let me get into slideshow and we'll start it. So we are a cloud service provider out of Grand Rapids in Michigan, and we're delivering cloud solutions all over the country, all over North America. So I did see some of our Canadian friends on today, so welcome. Thanks for being here. And being a cloud service provider just means that we're, delivering what we perceive to be a lot of items in the multiverse of cloud to our customers. So we're a big partner with VMware. We're in actually the top 0.1%. So having the cloud verified badge means we're one of 260 total partners globally out of VMware's partner network of 35,000 that gets verified every year for delivering cloud solutions, VMware flavored cloud solutions. So maybe you're a customer who doesn't care about VMware, you don't even know it. Maybe your customer is highly dependent on it. Either way, I'll just say, it's the leader in virtualization technology out there. So one of the best ways, in our opinion, to deliver cloud solutions. So what I'm going to talk about, and I don't have a co-host with me, so I can't do the color commentary as well, or at least I have to maybe provide both of those things, but is really the old way of doing things and kind of what we're calling the modern way, or the newer way of doing things. So we've established already that, remote work is here. The way that we're starting to do things, I saw somebody on the chat say, look, we've been doing remote work for 9 years, so this didn't really matter to us, this whole pandemic thing. And I think a lot of people we're starting to do that. You've started to see, like, even in the talent acquisition market, like how you attract talent to your company, many employers are having to say, hey, yes, we support remote work. And now during the pandemic and after, of course, we have to say that. So this is some survey stuff that VMware did. 74% of companies, and I got to believe it's more than that, but are just saying, hey, we're permanently shifting to more remote work. It's worked well for us. I mean, I'll speak for virtual systems and say, in a lot of ways, it's, we've never been so productive, but there is a little bit of sacrifice, and we saw this in some of Zoom slides. There's a little bit of sacrifice on, I mean, we lose some of the spontaneous collaboration. Like, I want to still get with some of my coworkers and, and hang out and celebrate birthdays and go get a beer or whatever as a team. So we're finding that balance, I think, now moving forward of what is the new normal, like Mark said. And the challenge for IT, if you're on this webinar, and there's north of 225 people on with us now, if you're managing in IT or you're doing IT, the challenge to you has been, all right, how do we shape our infrastructure in a way that supports whatever, like employees working from home, employees working from Starbucks, employees working from the office? What does that look like? And there's kind of an older way of doing it and a newer way, and that's what we're going to address here. So, I talked about employers kind of, 60% now are saying it's basically a prereq. We have to support remote work. And the whole idea of employee experience is kind of evolving from an IT perspective. IT owns a lot of that employee experience within an organization. How do we deliver like all the tools that our employees need in a super easy, super intuitive way, no matter where they are, but also like make sure that's compliant and secure. And one of the areas virtual systems works hard in, and where we really kind of carved out a niche market initially when we got our start about 10 years ago, was in some of the more highly compliant markets like finance and healthcare, and building compliance right into that solution. So, because that's a big part of it. I mean, you can't just have employees everywhere and give them what they need. It's still got to be the secure, the secure way of doing it, the protected way of doing it. We got to make sure we're not, getting ransomware or, everything else. So, speaking of that, maybe already, but the biggest security risk is at the endpoint. So, VMware says over 95% of breaches really originate at the endpoint. The old way of managing comes with a higher cost as well. So when we talk about the older, more traditional way of managing, we're talking about, let's deploy desktops out in the field. End users get a device, whatever that is, we'll put it under management. And then if that, and that's in a lot of cases where we store our data and where we run our applications. So those, let's standardize is kind of typically the normal. So we'll standardize, let's say on Dell laptops, they've got to be, kitted out with 6 cores and 10 gig of RAM to support the application stack that we've got. We've got to protect the network so everybody can log back into the servers that we're running out of the office. So how do we, maybe establish VPNs everywhere? Or how do we protect that network? That's the way we've always kind of done it. And the modern way of building that architecture is just to build everything out of a cloud or maybe a hybrid cloud environment and have everybody just log in to that cloud no matter where they are. No data comes over the network because everybody is just a window into the cloud. And then they, do their work there, and we build the security and compliance inside of that cloud infrastructure. And so the older technology is called VDI. Amazon calls it their cloud workspaces. Virtual systems has kind of used both of those terms interchangeably. You'll see it on this deck as both of those terms, but that's really kind of what we're defining is how do we build infrastructure? If we're going to do that, how do we build infrastructure in a cloud environment, wherever that is, AWS, Azure, virtual systems, maybe your own private cloud, and then just deliver that to everybody everywhere. We put an app on everybody's device. Who cares what they bring? They can be on their iPad, they can be on their Chromebook, they can be on their home computer, but they just log into that app, put in their username and password and multi-factor to something, and then log right into their Windows 10 computer or their Linux computer, whatever that is, and do their work inside of there. And so that's kind of the difference. That's what we're talking about. And the reason is because the management of like that traditional architecture hasn't evolved. Like it wasn't pandemic ready, like, I don't know if you scrambled, maybe put in your, in the chat there, if it was easy for you to move to this kind of remote work model or if that was difficult, but it wasn't. If that was your legacy way of doing it, you had to figure out a lot of networking stuff. You were probably on help desk with end users at their homes trying to figure out what their router is doing in their home. And that's a pain. That's we weren't ready for that. So it's challenging. And if you can move to a model that just says, hey, we don't care where you're at, just log in from any device, and that can be a lot easier. So I'm actually going to flip over a sec. I want to share this with you. So I get a lot of questions like, is this like where does this technology sit in regards to, how modern is this, I guess is the question. Where is it on the adoption curve? So I want to kind of think through this with you. This is a good visual. And if you ever thought about, if you think about where your business sits on that technology adoption curve, but I just Googled adoption curve before this thing started, and here's some visuals that came up. So if this technology, cloud workspace and VDI probably still sits in this early adopter, early majority category. So you've got your tech enthusiasts and innovators at the front end who are like, every time something new and awesome comes out, they jump into it and they pave the way for everybody else because it breaks and they've got to fix it. And then you've got visionaries and early adopters who are like, okay, they paved the way. That was great. We want to be at the front end of this, so let's jump into it. And then as you kind of move back on the adoption curve, it's more, hey, we want to sit in a safer place. We don't want to grab like the brand new technology out there, but we want to be taking care of our organization. And then you've got laggards and late majority at the end. And VDI has been out for a long time. VDI has been, what is that, 10, 15-year-old technology. Citrix kind of pioneered some of that with VMware really on the front end of that. And both of them still do a good job at it. But I've got a poll. Let's launch it. Maybe hopefully that poll just launched and you can see it, but put in there, vote where you're at on that adoption curve. I'm kind of interested in where people sit on that. I'm going to bounce back to share from the slide deck here, but this technology really it sits more in the, I would say early adopter or kind of the middle of the road yet. So it's not super innovative. It's been there for a while, but it's also not late to the game. So let me see if I can, where'd my screen share go? Are we looking at the modern management slide? Again, let me make sure. Oh.
Yeah, you got it, Dirk.
Okay. Make sure I'm in the right spot. So it's really been there, but it continues to evolve super well. So if you've used VDI in the past and you've got a bad taste in your mouth, I would say, even if it's been a couple of years ago, come back to it and check it out, because the technology that VMware uses to put a client at the endpoint is unbelievable. Compressing data and creating a nice, clean end user experience, no matter where your apps and data are sitting. It's really, really good. You also have the ability now, and I'm going to get to this in a couple of slides, where, you can spin up you get with a cloud service provider, whether that's Virtual Systems or somebody else who's doing this, and you can say, this is on demand. When we talk about cloud, we talk about where your data is sitting, like that's just somebody else's computer. But it's also the operational model of cloud that I think is so compelling. And it's the ability to grab infrastructure on demand, spin it up, use it for as long as you need to, pay for it while you're using it, and spin it back down. So if you've got a use case where you say like, hey, look, we're hiring like 10 temps. They're coming from all over the country. We need to give them all a similar app stack, rather than sending them all laptops with that app stack and letting them save stuff on that hard drive on the laptop. Let's just spin this up in the cloud. If we've got problems, we can blow away a desktop. We can spin up a new one. We can control all the patching and automation that needs to happen on that machine. Super easy way to deploy infrastructure for users. So on this slide, I don't love that traditional management says it costs IT an average of 105 device per device a year. I don't know what that number is. I would just say, you know what that number is, or at least you should be thinking about what that number is. How much does it cost us every year to manage an end device, to manage somebody at the endpoint? And whatever that cost is, explore a cloud infrastructure deployment and compare some of those operational costs with it, because it's a difference. So there's a difference also in the way you configure policies, the way you run patching for your environment. There's, again, like the old way of doing it, and then there's a more modern way of doing it. And it can be so much faster, so much cleaner, so much easier when you build that infrastructure in a cloud, full cloud or hybrid cloud environment. So this is another slide that just kind of speaks to the cost difference. Again, I don't know if the numbers are good or not for you, if they resonate for you or not, but quite often in a new way of doing things, in like that cloud deployment, cloud workspace model, you got a cost reduction that happens. You don't own infrastructure anymore, you lease it, which is a good thing. If you lease your car, you probably have your head around why it's not great to own a depreciating asset. So you lose that cost. You also lose the cost of managing a lot of things in your environment. You offload that to a team who's managing all that for you. So it's a really, much different way of kind of executing infrastructure. But I think what we are seeing in the market, what VMware is seeing in the market, I think by all accounts, is this migration to cloud and deploying cloud infrastructure, even though we're still on the front end of it, is going to keep continuing. I mean, I've heard people call it utility IT. It's like, I want to use my information technology when I turn it on, and I want to shut it off and not pay for it when I'm not using it. And that the underlying hardware technology keeps getting better and better, and software, I should say, keeps getting better and better and allowing for that to happen. So I think that's kind of the IT dream eventually as we keep deploying. But so the first part of the deck really just kind of talks about, and I'm getting close to being done here. What do we got? How are we doing on time? So we got 12:36. So I got a few more minutes here, just kind of talking about how to deploy. So the first part of the deck really talks about, what the difference is between modern management and traditional, and, why cloud workspaces. And if you're in this spot where you're like, okay, that sounds cool, but I don't know how to build that myself, that's cool. That's actually perfect, because the second half of the deck addresses that. And the model is really, find a cloud provider. It can be Amazon. You build it with Amazon, that's great. You do it yourself. You build it all yourself. You got to, if you're not an Amazon certified tech, then you've got to either bring someone in with you or learn that stuff on the fly. But the other way to do it, and the pitch that I'm making today with you is, bring a cloud service provider alongside of you and say, and ask the right questions and just say, hey, how do we do this? What if we did deploy just 5 users? I want to test this for like a month. Give me 5 users, and I need these 4 apps on an app stack. Let's connect it to a file server. And, let's try it. Let's see what it looks like for a while. And then we'll see, if this is technology that we want to use. And that has never really been available in the past. In the past, like, if you wanted to do this, you were hiring VMware engineers, you were buying a lot of VMware software, you were buying dedicated hardware for this solution, and you were married, for like, whatever, 5 years, you were going to try this thing, and hell or high water, you were in it together, you and whoever you decided to do this with, VMware or Citrix or Microsoft or whatever. And now you can just grab a cloud service provider and bring them alongside you and say, let me just try this. I want to dip my toe in the water. I don't know if I want it yet, but I want to just explore it. So, challenges here on the old way of doing it, poor performance, you can see inability to meet unexpected demand. We kind of talked about this. This is like, your ability to just push button deploy on brand new, warranted infrastructure, usually front end, I don't know what other cloud service providers do, but on the underneath, we are always, top shelf hardware. We're a Dell partner. We're a Nimble partner for storage underneath. VMware is the hypervisor. All the best of breed technologies that you just get to subscribe to and keep them going. This is interesting. I like this survey. So 12% of organizations said they were highly prepared for the impact of COVID-19. And I would add, it turns out that 11% of those were lying. That's my guess. But I don't know anybody really. I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with customers across the country, and I haven't had anybody go, we were perfectly prepared for this. It was awesome. But to a certain degree, everybody is kind of figuring out their own individual business challenges as they get through it. So now we don't have an excuse. Now we got to say, all right, we're pandemic ready. If you're not, I'm sure everybody on this call is getting that question in their organization or has in the past year. Okay, this happens again. What are we doing? How are we doing this? So I mentioned this before, but this is really bring the cloud service provider right alongside you. So we get some questions about this a lot, like how secure is this solution? So it's a lot to bring whether it's AWS or anybody alongside your organization and say, okay, we're going to put some data with you, or we're going to run our compute out of your cloud network. So how secure is it? And I can't obviously speak for if you've got other cloud service providers at the table with you, but what I'll tell you we do is we bring in an auditing team every year around SOC 2, HIPAA, PCI, everything NIST, and we get certified to have compliant infrastructure for those things so that we can wrap it right around the solution. and make sure that what we deliver to customers meets compliance needs, whatever they are, whatever industry you're in, and also security needs. So usually you're layering your security on top of this. So you want to deploy cloud infrastructure, you can find, your own antivirus, or you can use, ours, or you might be able to use another cloud service providers. You can layer in your own deep security elements, your own network security elements. It's really that a la carte. Let me build the Legos, like let me bring in all the pieces that I need and then build it however I want. So, but you can see by the polling, most people say that cloud delivery model is more secure and compliant, because we're liable to standards that you might not be. We've got customers in healthcare and finance, and maybe that's not you. And you say, like, ideally it'd be great to be compliant, but I guess we don't need it. And so if you built it yourself, you don't check that box, and maybe that's okay, but maybe it's handy to sit in a place where you're meeting those compliance requirements. So this also just talks about their savings. I would say to that, maybe, I wouldn't say if your agenda is to just save money and you want to do a cloud deployment, I would say you got to consider your operational costs as well. Some people say, well, I could put this on my own hardware and it's probably cheaper. And I would say, yes, probably it is, but you're probably not considering all the operational advantages of doing it. So there is a reduction in cost, but only insofar as you explore the entire costing model around how you deliver IT to your whole company. This was crazy to me. I believe this. I mean, I remember beginning of the pandemic. I mean, we're obviously a big VMware partner. We were talking to them, and everybody at VMware was all hands on deck around deploying VDI to like everybody all over the country, probably all over the world, but grew 82%, like literally doubled in a month and a half inside of VMware. So that's pretty wild. But so a lot of people are doing it. Maybe that's the takeaway there is, you think on that adoption curve, this isn't cutting edge technology. This is still technology that's being adopted. And I would say probably the enterprise space, ends up innovating more on that. And then, the commercial space and smaller businesses and the 1,000 employees and less ends up probably adopting that at the back end of that adoption curve. So it's happening all over the place now, and it's a good time to start exploring the technology. So anything else? Oh, really cool use case. Man, I could talk about stories. One of my favorite stories probably from 2020 was this law firm that came out of LA. So they saw us on a webinar, called us up. This was beginning of the pandemic. So imagine like everybody is at home, like lockdown. It was during that time. And this guy calls up our team and just says, like, we've got old attorneys. They don't know how to use technology. We don't know how to deliver it. We're basically at a standstill. And so we walked them through, what's your application stack? Send me this info. Brought all their apps into a cloud environment, and then deployed Cloud Workspaces to their attorneys all over California. So they had some NorCal stuff and some Southern California stuff. And within a few weeks, they've got all their folks are working wherever they are. We didn't have to think about what devices they're on. We helped them all get onboarded, and it worked great. So the cool thing about this solution is that it can be as small as you want. It can be as big as you want. VMware touts some big numbers here. I think there's another one that talks about like a 35,000 user deployment in like a couple weeks. It's massive, but it scales. It's one of the cool things about it. So last thing I'll say here is just on this piece around hybrid cloud. So typically, you want to think about your compute happening with your apps. So your desktop and your apps are in the same place. It's why you do the old school model where you deploy a laptop and you install the apps on the laptop. And there's no lag between your computing and your data. What VMware has really innovated around over the last couple years has been the hybrid cloud deployment model. So customers who say, look, I'd love to do this kind of model, but there's no way in hell we're letting go of our data. It's sitting in our data center forever. But you can still, so what VMware is really innovated around is doing that and tying desktops to applications wherever they sit. So I would just add here, at the risk of droning on and on too long, I would just add, if that's you, still explore it. It's pretty cool. You can test it. And they've innovated a lot around it, and it's been really good. So last thing I want to leave you with before we're done, and then I'll hand it over to Mark. We can do a little Q&A. Hopefully, I haven't checked the chat in a minute, but hopefully people are getting their lunch gift cards. I will tell you, if you have not gotten it, I promise you will get it. There's no way we won't let you miss it. So this is really cool. If you don't follow Brian Madden, if you're not into end user computing stuff, this dude is brilliant. He's a guy who started an end user computing brand on his own. So Brian Madden actually became a company. He was just a writer, blog writer. VMware eventually was like, this dude's brilliant, we're going to hire him. So they did. And now he writes for them, but he writes some really cool stuff. I'm going to drop this link in the chat. So I got a link to his playbook. I don't get anything from you looking at it, but I just think it's really cool info. So if you think it'd be interesting, I'm going to drop it in the chat, and it will actually be included in the follow-up campaign. So you'll get an email with a link to this thing. But really cool literature just about like how you continue to learn about cloud, how you can leverage cloud, you know, in your own environment using obviously VMware technologies. But I hear a lot from people who are like, man, I never knew I could do this. Like I never knew that this was a thing, that I could spin up desktops on demand, or that I could use a cloud partner for it, or that I could have apps sit in one place and desktops in another. And so it's cool that VMware's got some really good resources for some good stuff around it. So I want to keep you educated. That's part of what Virtual Systems likes to do, is just keep you in the know with great content out there. So I'll get that out in the chat, and then it'll be part of the emails following up. So I'm going to kick it back over to Mark, and maybe there's some good questions on the Q&A, but we want to dedicate some time to just dialogue.
Yeah, really nice job, Dirk. And I didn't get a chance. John and Jim, you guys nailed it there. Really appreciate so much good content. I think just real quick to put a bow on it, we've more than explained the gift card thing. There was some duplication on some registrations. That's just being scrubbed. So like Dirk said, we assure you all that will be taken care of in due time. But please use the chat. Now, if you have any additional questions, we want to make sure we can keep this topic relevant. There's a lot of organizations that join this and are really looking to maximize the last 15 minutes. So we're going to spend our time there. And you know, there's just a few comments that I had after listening to you gentlemen speak. There were a few really good comments. And I mean, Gilbert kind of nailed the one that I think, you know, is kind of a really concerning, how do we deal with it kind of post effect, right? It's what are the definitive business hours these days? And you know, the joke 2 years ago is people kind of pointed and would blame the millennials, right? And say, well, they're, you know, they like their freedom, they like this, they're all, you know, tethered to their cell phones, they're doing this, that, and that. Now it's kind of collectively all of us, right? We're all working from blurred lines. The workforce or the workspaces are, it's a blurry definition. And I surely hope that there'll be some market leaders and organizations not just giving people vacation time, right? Because that doesn't solve the fact that there's people that are working from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. They're having a quick dinner and kissing their family, and then they're plugging back in for 2 or 3 hours. Or they're responding to emails and waking up at the middle of the night because their sleep patterns are now off because they are actually having panic or anxiety from not responding. So Gilbert, hearing you loud and clear on that one, I think that is something that we as not only in an industry, but you know, as a society really need to follow and make sure that mental health is kept top of mind as we move into this kind of digital transformation. And real quick, just to tack onto that, Gilbert came back with another great point on preparation for disaster. And there was a lot of side comments that came out of that, right? Well, sure, maybe you're prepared for something that lasts 2 days or maybe a week and a half, but certainly not a year and a half, right? And to that point, I mean, now that we've seen something that came from a direction that I don't think anyone was looking, a global pandemic, the one that I think that we can all be, you know, top of mind, and many organizations are now starting to shift some of their focus to is digital attacks, right? Phishing, employee attacks, and ransomware. And all we can say to folks is please spend some time. I mean, someone had brought up the point in the comments that most organizations kind of do a half-arse approach proactively, and then it's kind of post, right? It's like, oh crap, we had an internet outage for a week. Now I know that cost me what that cost my business. 10 years ago, we used to see routinely businesses that would send people home or or not really care. Now they have metrics that they're losing 10, 20, $1 million an hour if their e-commerce platform or if their assembly lines are down. They're paying fines. So very few organizations don't have two stable, diverse path ISPs if they're mid-market or an enterprise business. And even many small businesses have dual internet connections. And to that point, I think it was Matt that mentioned the internet access from home with business class internet. It's another great point. A lot of times you don't have options in an apartment or in your home or a residence or certain areas. Whereas if you were in a multi-tenant complex, there might have been 6 different fiber providers and very competitive services in your building. So these are all things, if you want to reach out to us afterwards, we'd be happy to explain and provide some additional metrics or information on those topics that kind of skirt where we're at right now. But there's some great stuff coming in, and I've got a couple written down. And I definitely want to go back. Let's go back real quick first to either Jim or John. And I think it's fascinating, and we've seen other organizations kind of, whether it's good fortune or whether it's by having the best product in the industry, you create a long runway for yourself by being a market leader in one area. But then it's not how you stay there and just survive, right? It's how you thrive and build off of that. So many people that knew you possibly for the platform that we're on today, you did a great job of illustrating, showing how it's kind of seamlessly integrated, almost too easy, I think, for some people. Can you go back and just talk a little bit about how Zoom Rooms and Zoom Phone are kind of evolving and taking Zoom to that kind of next level?
Yeah, I want to let Jim take that question. But first, before we do that, I just want to go back to your previous point about working hours and things of that nature that Gilbert brought up, because I think it's a great point, and I'm glad you called it out because, this is in our pocket, right? From, after 5 o'clock, it's going crazy, right? You got working hours that are different for everybody. You've got follow the sun support. You've got people that are working around the globe. We're certainly no stranger to that at Zoom. Zoom does a great job of segmenting that out, and there's settings within the phone, within your Zoom app, to turn off your notifications within the Zoom app specifically and schedule them to be just during working hours. So look for that in the app for your settings. And they encourage us here at Zoom to use that because they don't want you. I mean, they do a great job with mental health and making sure people are not always on the clock, right? 100% of the time, because that's the modality that we're in now. I would encourage you all to go in, check that out, look at the settings, look at the scheduling, and making sure that you turn that off. This is different from your notification settings from your device, from the do not disturb setting. It is a setting within Zoom. So Jim, I'll let you kind of answer that one about the ecosystem.
Yeah, and great tip. So Mark, that's a perfect lead in to a great closing point for Zoom. And it is that we are hyper focused on a return to the office, not return to work because people have been working, but return to the office format. And Zoom Rooms and Zoom Phone together with Zoom Meetings is the solution to do that. I'm gonna throw a number out there to you. I don't have the slide for it, but just trust me on it and go with me. Probably from your own experiences, but 90% of conference rooms, huddle rooms inside of office buildings today are only enabled for audio, meaning that there's a Polycom Starfish phone in the center of that room, and that's it. Now think about that as we all return to an office environment. That's going to seem incredibly foreign, and we're going to want to enable and work from an audio and visual perspective, be able to whiteboard on the fly, be able to share, collaborate, and do all of those things with people in the office and remote. So some of the things that we're working on, and we can send some links out if you're going to distribute them later, some really cool videos out there. So imagine the AI capabilities of what we're doing with cameras. You walk into a room today, and where's that camera at? It's above the TV in front of the room. And what happens, right? That room all of a sudden gets very small. You can't really see the individuals on the screen because we're all used to this single box format that we've come accustomed to, during these one-on-one meetings. Well, in the Zoom world now, we partnered with Logi to create a multiple camera format. So cameras on the sides of the rooms as well in the front of the rooms are going to individually isolate individuals that are in that room at the conference table to put them in their own single box format, so that whether you're a remote user or in that conference room, you're going to be exposed to the same experience that you would expect from Zoom. So that video platform, what we're building from a collaboration standpoint, how we're going to better enable the video for remote work, for in the office work in a hybrid environment, is only going to continue to improve. The single button push to collaborate, if you've never used a Zoom room before from your mobile device, it will change you, because as soon as you pop into the mobile application, anything that you want to display, it's just like airplaying to your Apple TV from your MacBook, or anything like, any of those similar experiences you have with other products. The ability to make it seamless, collaborate easily in a format that is appealing and kind of works. It elevates the video conference to the next level. That's what we're working on today, and that's what's enabled in Zoom now, which is really exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, John. And for anything that came through for cybersecurity, we could literally talk another hour on that, right? But if anyone needs anything there, I'm just going to kind of box that up and say, feel free to reach out to us. We've got a ton of subject matter and tips and trends there for folks that are trying to proactively get out in front of that. And whether it's just getting some idea on where to start, framework, compliancy issues, EDR, MDR, two-factor authentication, all of those things we can help on either a different webinar, or happy to do a call with you after this. But Dirk, there were a couple of things I'm going to throw out too, just in the sake of time, because I want to let Mary wrap us up after that. But if you can address two things that kind of came in together. There was a really good question that I'd like you to address. I'm going to give you the second one. I'm going to do them together. But there was a question: what are the best reasons to go VMware VDI versus Citrix? And then if you didn't see it earlier, Dirk, one came in kind of just asking kind of where you think we're actually at on metrics as far as VDI compared to VPN and RDS. Kind of the industry trends there. If you could kind of just address both of those and try and, keep it into 2 minutes, but that'd be awesome.
I know, yeah, I'll try to keep it under 1 minute. So where we're at on that, like VDI versus VPN, we actually did a blog post on that not too long ago. And I think it's a great question, because really they're both good ways to solve the problem. My guess would be VPN probably leads a little bit, just because that move from traditional infrastructure, like we talked about, the way we've always done it, VPN is kind of an extension of that. It's not a forklift upgrade. So, as I'm thinking through customer conversations that we're having and where I'm, hearing customers at, across the country, it feels like there is probably a little more comfortability with VPN. Although I would say VDA is probably, well, I wouldn't say it's better. I want to hesitate to say that, because it depends on your use case a bit. So that's what I'd say on that. They're both good ways, as long as you're doing them well and you're thinking about security in both scenarios, and you're speccing your environment appropriately. They're both good ways to solve it. The other question, was VDI versus like VMware versus Citrix, and that I would say, we're a huge VMware partner, but that doesn't preclude us from looking at Citrix literally every year to figure out, do we start including this in our portfolio? Citrix, hopefully you're not on the call. Where I would say VMware continues to lead is around price, believe it or not. So Citrix just a little bit more expensive given the exact same speccing of the environment. I do think Citrix does a better job than VMware around marketing. They really tell a cool story. So if you're interested in learning more about end user computing, I don't think it's a bad idea to explore Citrix marketing, because they do a really good job of kind of talking about the solution, probably better than VMware in some cases. But I would say I would defer to whatever you've got in your own environment, and maybe something plays maybe better in a Citrix or a VMware environment. But we have been married to VMware for a long time. Think that is best in class technology. Overall, as we continue to research it every year, it keeps winning in the criteria that we give it, and so that's why we keep putting muscle behind it. So it's better technology at the end point. So compressing and deduping data, making sure that end user experience, no matter what kind of network they're on, feels good. That kind of stuff just ends up, they pull away a little bit for us. So yeah, great questions. Thanks for those.
Thanks, Dirk. And gentlemen, again, great job today. There was a ton of great content. I'm going to pass it over to Mary, and she's going to wrap us up. But from my heart, sincerely, thanks to everyone that joined us today. Mary, if you want to wrap us up.
Wonderful. Yep. So a big thank you to Dirk, Mark, John, and Jim. We really appreciate you taking the time to provide such beneficial content today for our attendees. To our attendees, thank you for providing good content in regard to questions and enlightening conversation. Again, you can look for your gift card at the end of this webinar. It could be possibly later in the afternoon, but do not panic. You will receive a gift card. So again, we appreciate you and your time, and we look forward to having continued engaging conversation in the future. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Mari. Thanks to the GTS team.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate it. We'll see you soon. Take care.